Welcome to The Howl, where GPAC's team of passionate people share 30 years of experience in the recruiting biz, with front row seats to hundreds of different industries. I'm your host, Luke Linus, and I'll be sitting down in the GPAC studio with recruiters, coaches, and industry leaders to talk shop on modern work culture, job hunting tips, elevating your recruiting game, and insight into trends and hiring for companies of all sizes. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast, The Howl podcast by GPAC. We are so excited for you to be here today, whether you're watching this on video or listening anywhere you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Again, we've got a lot of really great episodes leading up to this one. I'm excited for today's conversation. I think we're going to get into some really cool things about how to talk to people, how to relate to people, what the experience of cold calling versus in-person conversation is like, and how to really count the cost when you think about taking a new career. And to have that conversation, I've got Julie Gross here in the studio. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, great to be here.
Have you ever done a podcast before?
Never.
Cool. This is going to be a fun thing. I had an interview with Julie a couple weeks ago, and we just had a really great time. And I was so intrigued by her story and some of the insight you brought that I just said, we have to do a podcast episode on it. So
great.
Here we are.
Okay.
You were, as far as GPAC goes, you've been here just under 3 months.
Yeah.
Just under 3 months.
Yes.
So you're pretty new to GPAC.
Mm-hmm.
However, the previous 4 years of that, you were Department of Agriculture, South Dakota. 5 years before that, you were in economic development in Madison, South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
Not a stranger to politics, not a stranger to hard conversations, to making things come together.
Yeah.
So that's really, I'm really intrigued by your story. I'm really intrigued by the experience that you bring to the table. So I hope we get to talk a little bit about it today. Tell everybody a little bit about your background, kind of starting with those things. What was it like to be in economic development and then moving into that appointment?
Okay, great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I was in economic development in Madison, and that was an awesome job. And as an economic developer, you're kind of like a tour guide. You kind of show everybody around the community. You need to know about the community, and you need to know connections. And so that, has been good for me for every aspect of my life is connections. So, when you take somebody to the industrial park, you don't have to know, what kind of soil you have. You don't have to know where the natural gas line comes in. You don't have to know about the water and what the pressure is, but you need to know who to find it out from. So it was just kind of so I always thought of myself as a tour guide. I was bringing people to our community, strangers, kind of like cold calling, strangers to the community, trying to sell them on the community, sell them on South Dakota.
Yep.
I've done some trade shows with the state, and again, trying to sell them on South Dakota, all the benefits of moving their business to South Dakota. And so that was economic development, and then I was asked to take an appointment. So I took an appointment with the administration, and I knew that it was a risk because, at the end of the end of the administration, you might get to keep your job and you might lose your job.
Right.
And
not a job security thing.
No, there's not any job security in an appointment. And I knew that. And that was with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. I was a state director in South Dakota.
Yep.
And there again, you're kind of like a tour guide. You don't have to know about every industry, but you need to know a little bit about the industries. We provided loans and grants to businesses, communities, tribal organizations to South Dakota, and we would bring close about $450-500 million to South Dakota each year.
Wow. That is a lot.
It is, in the form of loans and grants. And so I would be speaking to groups. I would be talking to different organizations about either water or it could have been broadband. Broadband is a very big hot button, trying to bring broadband here. It could have been single-family housing, multifamily housing. Could have been a variety of things. And I didn't have to know everything about that, but I just needed to know key things about that so that I could explain it to the audience.
Yep. And what was your specific role?
I was a state director.
You're a state director.
State director for USDA Rural Development.
Yep.
So I worked for the federal government.
Yep. And then your counterparts were in all the other states, right?
Yep. There was one of us in every state.
Yep.
So I had 50 friends, 49 friends, 49 friends.
Whether you like them or not.
Yeah, that's right. One in every state.
Yep.
There was one of us in every state. And so we would have meetings, and we would have, face-to-face meetings, a lot of phone calls, video conference meetings too.
Yep.
So you were always, all of us were in it together, and we were all trying to do the same thing for each of our respective states.
Huh. Was it competitive at all?
Yeah, because we were competing for the same dollars. The federal government has so much money in loans and so much money in grants. And, of course, the grant money goes first. So it was competitive. So, although they allocate a certain amount to each state, then it goes into a big pot, and then that's the competitive.
Yep.
And tribal organizations will get a certain amount, but then all of the tribes around the U.S. were competing for that money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like a challenging environment.
It was very challenging, yeah.
What were some things that you learned through that process?
Oh, gosh, I learned a lot. Working for the federal government was very different from economic development because I was kind of a little bit my own boss, but I answered to a board of 12, and so there was always somebody around. When I went to the federal government, everybody was watching you. There was things you could and could not do, things you could and could not say. And everything was scrutinized, from your press release to everything that went out. Somebody either, probably in Washington, D.C., had to look at that before it went out to make sure that you weren't crossing any lines, to make sure, and you had to make sure that you didn't violate the Hatch Act, which you can't get into any sort of political activities. There's many things that you wouldn't think that you'd think you'd be able to do, but you couldn't do. Yep. And so then you also had to make sure you had your staff, which I had started out with a staff of 58, you had to make sure that they were following the right rules too and the right guidelines. You couldn't let them stray either.
What else, what are some things that you really learned, like more from a skill set in that time?
Yeah, you can't take anything personally. So if something goes wrong, you just need to roll with the punches. You need to, move on. That glass is always half full, and you need to celebrate every success, every little thing you need to celebrate. So you didn't get the big deal. You didn't get the, $50 million loan. Big deal. You were able to help this community with this other loan. So you just want to always celebrate, and you want to look at who it is that you're helping. We helped a lot of fire departments across South Dakota, and what a great thing that is. You have these really small towns, and they can't afford, to buy new equipment, but the federal government can afford to help them with a loan or with a grant. And so those kind of things were just really awesome. So it really didn't matter to me if you got the big dollar things. Yeah. It was, the quantity or the quality to make sure that you got all of that you're meeting goals of helping a variety of people, whether it was, communities, businesses, tribal organizations, community development, economic development offices, no matter what it was that you were helping out a different group of people. Yep.
And so, it sounds like your role is more, you talked about like it being a tour guide, where you're not necessarily making something happen, but you're trying to at least show what's possible and maybe, for lack of a better word, sell an opportunity, right? Did you deal much with like trying to bring a deal together? Was that really a part of your role?
In economic development, absolutely.
Yep.
Was trying to. That's what I did. Is I tried to bring a deal together. Yeah. You tried to get a business to maybe expand in your town, or bring a business to South Dakota, or bring a business to your town. Yep. So you wanted to. So you were always trying to make a deal on, and selling your community. Labor force is tough all around South Dakota. We need probably more people. And so when you bring a business to South Dakota, especially to your community, they need to know, are they going to have employees? Yep. And so you're always trying to look at the employees, look at their skill sets. There's ways you can see those kind of things. Look at their skill sets. What are the wages? Can the company that's moving here afford it? What incentives are there from the state? What incentives are there from our community? Yep.
Yeah. The this podcast really serves recruiters at large, but it also serves anyone who may be listening that's maybe in a career or who's in a company or a leadership company looking to grow their company. But I'm curious, like, what are some things or maybe how did you get good at seeing deals come together? That's basically taking two parties that may totally disagree on something and somehow coming to a compromise. Like, just talk about that. Like, how did you get in the mix? How did you do that, learn to do that well?
Yeah, well, I love people, and I love to talk, and I love to have conversations with people. And it just starts with the conversation, whether or not you might not even really understand their business, but talking to them, learning about their business, trying to figure out what are their needs. You can't try to fit, a square peg into a round hole. We always say that, but it's so true. No matter if you're doing recruiting or you're doing economic development, it doesn't matter. I worked with a company based out of Minneapolis, and they were actually creating their product in Vietnam. And I saw them at a meeting, and we hit it off right away because we had a connection. And so then I followed up. You just have to continually follow up, and tried to see what it is that they really needed. We started out that they were going to need a building, okay? But then when it really came down to it, they really didn't need a building. They were basically a startup company, but that was manufacturing in Vietnam, and they needed space in a building. They really didn't need their own building, but that's what we started down the path, and that's not how it ended up. They did end up coming to Madison, and they ended up in another building with a company that kind of did a similar product to them, and so it worked out great. But it would have never gotten there had there not been lots of conversations. So you kind of need to figure out, you got to bring people together, bring the smartest people to the table, bring the people that know, about whether it's the water, the electricity, how much is it going to cost them to bring in these big machines, and what effect is this going to have on the company? So you have to bring all the right people to the table, collaboration.
Yeah, so it's really seeing, and this is the crossover to recruiting, right? Is that you're finding out what each party really ultimately wants, and then somehow getting them to talk and collaborate and see how they both can accomplish the same or a goal that makes everybody happy, right? I mean, that's like what I teach my son as a 6-year-old, right? How to create compromise, but now you're dealing with more variables and land and money and all kinds of big things. So maybe to me as an outsider, it seems pretty overwhelming to bring deals like that together. So like, are there any like practical, I'm a practical guy, so it's kind of like, are there any practical things that you learned along the way that like aided that process? I'm thinking more like the people part, practical things of like how to help bring people together.
Well, you're going to deal with all kinds of different people from all different backgrounds, and you need to try to figure out what it is that makes them tick, because we're all from, like I said, we're all from different backgrounds. So you kind of just got to figure it out. They may be a CEO of a company, and they may make a lot of money, and they may be nice as ever, but they may be a little bit full of themselves, and you have to figure out how to talk to them. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. You just need to get out of your comfort zone and start talking about things that you maybe have in common, whether it be your watch, your shirt, just start with little things, and find some common ground, and then build onto that and ask questions. And that's how you get to know people is by asking questions. If I talk about myself all the time, all you're going to know is about me. I'm not going to find anything out about you. So if I ask lots of questions, then I'm able to figure out that point where I can carry on to the next conversation, I guess.
Right. And that's what makes a good recruiter. And that's what makes really, I think an effective person, in my opinion, is somebody who can listen well and ask good questions. But in a professional environment, that yields really well in recruiting, right? Because you have to get to know someone. You have to understand what they're really wanting. And the only way to get there is to ask them questions.
Right.
You can't talk your way to that.
Right.
So,
and you may have a success and you may not. And you can't take it personally if it doesn't work out, because it's not that they didn't like me necessarily, or they didn't like our town. It just maybe wasn't the fit. Maybe the lot wasn't the right size. Maybe the soil wasn't right. Maybe we didn't have enough water pressure for them. Maybe we didn't have enough workers. Maybe they wanted 1,000 jobs and we didn't have 1,000 jobs or 1,000 people looking. You just never know what it is, but you learn from it and you figure out the next time, okay, then I won't go after that size company. Maybe I need to, you always want to try to go from within your means of your community. So.
What about, I'm sure there's no shortage of challenging conversations or challenging people in the spheres you've been in. Like, what are some things that you've learned about how to navigate either hard conversations or conversations with challenging people?
Well, even though you have challenging conversations, you can make them, I guess you just have to figure out how to make them not so challenging. You have to remember that they know their stuff. They know whatever their business is. And so you can't act like you know more than them. You need to humble yourself, and you need to, ask the right questions. You need to talk to them, and you need to remember that they haven't always been where they're at. And so they maybe were in your shoes once, or they were, I think of like in the political world. We talked a little bit about the political world. You look at people who give awesome speeches, and you think, wow, I want to be able to give a speech like that. Well, they haven't always been able to give a speech like that. Maybe a few people, but most of them, I've seen, city commissioners, county commissioners, legislators who just are starting out, and their first speech is a little bit bumpy, and their second one is still a little bit bumpy. But as time goes on, they become more and more polished, and they know what they're talking about. They know their stuff. Then if they get elected and they're in front of either the state or the state legislature or wherever they're at, or if they're a CEO of a company, they're polished. They've been doing that. And so you just have to know that. So you can't be intimidated by that because they've been doing that a lot longer than you have. So you just have to, get out of your comfort zone and just know that most people, if you're not arrogant, most people will just have a conversation with you. I mean, people like to talk. People like to talk about themselves. Ask them about their family. Ask them about, whatever.
What about taking it personally? So you mentioned that, you learned how to not take things personally. I don't know if there's something more helpful in the business world or just relationships of, there's a point where you need to have real conversation with people about how things are affecting you. But a lot of times just not taking feedback personally or criticism personally or whatever it may be. What did you learn about that? Like, what's the wisdom there of not taking things personally?
I used to always say, water off a duck's back. You just have to shrug it off. You just have to shrug it off, move on, and don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive. There's a positive in everything, no matter, even if you lose a deal, whether it was in economic development or whether it's in recruiting and somebody doesn't take the job or a company doesn't hire them, there's still something you can learn from that. There is a success in that story. There's a success in everything, and you need to find that success, and you need to celebrate that, and you need to learn from that, and then move on. You just can't. And if you need to, walk away. Walk away. If you've had a really bad phone call, walk out of your office. If if things didn't go well, when I was in economic development, we had some great successes, but we didn't get everything, and there was a reason why. We didn't get everything. Maybe we didn't have the right whatever. And it all worked out just fine.
Sure. Just learning through the process.
You need to really have a positive attitude, positive mental attitude. They always say that that's, 80 or 90% of the battle, and that's true. It really is.
And celebrate your successes. Celebrate
absolutely.
The little wins. I think that's really important in anything in life to keep celebrating.
I would agree. Last week, this is a silly little thing, but I sent out a 4th of July email to a bunch of people, companies in the title and escrow. Just sent it out. I didn't say anything about recruiting. I just, said, happy 4th of July, have a safe weekend, talk to you next week or whatever. And a lot of people didn't answer back, but several people emailed me back and said, you have a good weekend too, Julie. Now, to me, that was a success. If someone actually pressed return and typed something to me and pressed send, to me, that's a success. For some people, that is like not a big deal. To me, it was a big deal. I mean, they actually took the time. One person even called me, told me to have a good weekend. I mean, I think that's awesome. You have to celebrate all of those little things.
Yeah, and so let's talk about recruiting. So, you made a career change. I kind of want to finish the podcast with that, but you moved a lot of the things that you're talking about in, economic development clearly are a crossover to how you're experiencing recruiting. In economic development, you're having the ups and downs. You don't know if a deal is going to come together. You can just be the tour guide, right? And then now you're in the recruiting desk. You've been here for almost 3 months, right? You've humbled yourself to the process. You've at least as I've talked to you, you've got a very teachable spirit. But it's it's a lot of ups and downs in this business. So just kind of talk about that, the transition from, or maybe the parallels between what you've experienced before and how you carried that into this new career that you're doing very well in, even a couple months in.
Well, I love to learn new things. I mean, I love people. I love to learn new things. I think if you stop learning, you cease to exist. And so I love learning new things. And every day I'm learning about a company or a candidate or maybe the community the candidate is from, or, who knows what I'm learning, but I am learning, or something about the process. I'm learning something every single day. And I felt like I've done that in every job. I don't think I'll never say, I know it all. I mean, I'm never going to know it all.
Yeah.
Whether it's about economic development or recruiting, there is so much that I don't know, but I listen. We have calls twice a week, and they talk about different subjects. I listen, I take notes, and when my coach talks, I listen. When other recruiters talk, I listen, because you can learn from everyone. So I think a lot of life is listening.
Yep. And what's the payoff of lifelong learning to you?
Gosh. I think I've got the payoff of lifelong learning is I've got this awesome job now that I can work from anywhere. I mean, I am super excited about the opportunity to be able to work from anywhere. I have always worked in an office, or I've always, a good share of my life, I've traveled in my job, and I've loved traveling. And whether it's been, around South Dakota, I've spent a lot of years traveling around South Dakota, and I've loved it. But it comes a time in your life when maybe you don't want to travel as much. And right now, I get to office from home or anywhere. And so I think that is awesome. And I look at everything I've done in life, and it's probably everything that I've done has helped me get to here. Yep. I call myself seasoned because maybe I'm a little bit older than most everybody on my team. I'm probably old enough to be we have a coach. Yep. I'm probably old enough to be his mom, but he never treats me like that, and he never acts like I'm his mom.
Yeah.
Everybody on the team is awesome, but I'm seasoned, and I think but my seasoning has helped me.
Yeah.
I think all of my experiences and being able to talk to different people and being thrown in different environments and just knowing a little bit about these different industries. I know about a lot of different industries because I had to in economic development, and that has helped me.
And you kind of talked about, the parallel, when you were a tour guide, you didn't need to know, the soil and these different parts of what's actually going on. You just needed to know how to show people around and get them to the people that do know, right? Mm-hmm. How does that apply in your current opportunity that you have? So you're in title and escrow, you're in a new industry for you. Mm-hmm. What's that like for you now? Well,
they tell us in training, industry or craft and then industry. Mm-hmm. I mean, you learn how to do it, and then you can do this in any industry. Yep. You can't go in not knowing anything. You probably need to do a little homework. I mean, I read about title and escrow. If I was going to move into engineering, I know a little bit about engineering, but I mean, I don't know a lot. I would just read about that state. So you want to try to learn the industry you're in. Mm-hmm. But if you follow the process, you should be able to succeed.
Yeah, that's good stuff. You talked about the move from, well, I guess the desire to work from anywhere. Mm-hmm. Doing that moves you away from in-person conversations to more remote, conversations. Now, granted, we're in the era that we're in where we can Zoom call and Ring Central, and you've got video calling, and we're not. But in general, in this business, you're picking up the phone or you're sending a message. That's not an in-person conversation. Mm-hmm. Talk about that change for you, where you've been in politics, you've been faced these kinds of conversations all the time, and now you're on the phone. How's that different for you?
Gosh, it is different. And there are aspects of it that I really do miss, because I loved that in person. And I was appointed to my job because I had so many connections in South Dakota. And so I think, am I going to lose all those connections?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't see people like I used to. I go to a conference, and now I'm not going to those conferences. So that little bit does, it is a bummer, because I'm not seeing that, or I'm not seeing same people, but I still think I'm still going to a lot of social functions, and I can still hit the big things if I want. So I'm still going to be able to see them. But it is different, but it's still the same thing, whether I'm sitting across the table from you or whether I'm picking up the phone. It's still, I need to figure out what it is that you need.
Right.
And if you can figure out what a hiring authority needs, then you can always be on the lookout. If they have an urgent job and you help them fill that job and they get some trust in you and they say, maybe 5-6 months I might be looking for X, then, you can always be looking for that type of position too. One of my hiring authorities told me, they were looking for a certain manager. Keep my eye out. Okay. And as I was going through last week, I found somebody that I thought, oh my, this checks all the boxes for this hiring authority.
Yep.
I called him and I said, I think you're going to really want to talk to this person. And he did. So I don't know what's going to happen with that one yet because there's only been one interview. Yeah. But, I was able to listen to what his needs are and then just kind of keep my eyes open and then bring that candidate to him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And not to toot your horn for you, but part of the big reason you are new to this industry, but you have done very well in starting this out, which to me isn't just that you made a lot of placements, it's that you're doing the work where it needs to be done. And we know this is a people business, so that means you're putting your energy toward really finding what people need, right? Mm-hmm. So how have you kept that in transitioning from in-person conversation to phone conversations and emails? How have you maintained that kind of relational thing in that environment, new environment?
It's definitely more difficult to do, but you try to find a time when the person can talk to you. Everybody is busy. We're all busy. So I find early morning, before the day has gotten started, or maybe at the end of the day. And then maybe trying to schedule an appointment with them instead of just calling them in the middle of the day and catching them when they're in the middle of something. Yep. So trying to do that, you can use your Outlook calendar and send a scheduled meeting. Then it pops up on their calendar or their phone or their watch or whatever they have. So trying to be a little bit more deliberate instead of just flying, trying to, catch somebody here and there. Yep. You can't always do that. And when you're cold calling, you can't do that. Yep. But if you can get a connection with someone, then you can. Yep. You just have to try to figure out how to get that connection. Yeah. And that can be tough. And the same with a candidate. Candidates are working. Mm-hmm. So you may need to talk to them at night, or you may need to talk to them on a Saturday. Yep. And I don't have a problem doing that at all. If you're looking for an 8-to-5 job, this is not an 8-to-5 job, which is what I love about it. In the government, it was definitely an 8-to-5 or 7:30 to 4, or whatever the hours were a job. And at the end of the day, they didn't work anymore. So if someone needed something, it didn't matter. And that drove me crazy. I had a very hard time with that because that's not what I was used to.
You want to see it done.
Yeah, and I was used to in economic development. They'd call me at home. They knew where I lived. They'd call me. That's no problem. I would answer the phone. Mm-hmm. It's not for everybody, but it's for me. And so when I came to GPAC, I was like, wow, these people are working at night. I'm getting emails at night. I'm the only one that sends emails at night, not at GPAC. Yeah. Everybody's sending emails at night. At 10 o'clock at night, I think it was 10:30. Another girl and I were on the phone with our coach. We were on a video call, and he was showing us some things. I mean, that would never have happened in the government. It just wouldn't have happened. Yep. I love that. I love that everybody's willing to help you and willing to work no matter what time of the day it is. So it's 5 o'clock. That's just another hour. Big deal. Sure. Yep. I mean, you can take a break and then maybe go back at it. I'm not saying you need to work 12, 14, 16-hour days every day. Yep. Not at all. Yep. But you can have a flexible schedule. I don't have one yet, but I think that you can have a flexible schedule, maybe come in a little bit later, or I'm working in Eastern time zone. So I like to start my day at least by 7 Central time because, it's 8 o'clock. Yep. And so I want to get them right away before their day has started. Yep.
What's the way that you talked about, going to the conferences or trade shows or just having, real life conversations with people, but you are more or less cold calling or talking to strangers. And you talked about, picking on little things that create commonality and potential connection. How do you do that on the phone?
Well, it's maybe a little bit more difficult, but if you can find them on LinkedIn or Google, you can usually find something about them, or even talking about their community, or you look up something about their agency. If I know I'm going to be able to talk to a hiring authority, I look up their agency. I want to know, where they're located, exactly where at in that community. I want to know, how many they employ. I want to know what exactly it is that they do. I don't want to just cold call them and not know anything.
Yeah.
But that way I can talk a little bit about them. And obviously with the internet, everybody's got a website. You can look at their website. You probably can even see a picture of them.
Yep.
And a lot of times you'll find that they will look at a picture of you. You know that they've looked up you too, which I always tell everybody, look up GPAC. You don't know who I am. I'm in South Dakota. I'm proud that I'm in South Dakota, but I'm here and you're in Florida and you don't know who I am. So absolutely look me up. And so a lot of times I will send just a little bit of information about the company and our website so that before I've contacted them, so they know, who it is that's contacting them.
Yep.
And they say, the old marketing rule is the rule of 7. They say that you need to be, that person needs to hear from you 7 times before they'll buy something. I mean, that's the old marketing rule. I don't know if you really need to be 7 times, but they might not talk to you the first time. They might not talk to you the second time, but maybe the third time or, it could take 7 times and they may never talk to you, which is okay too. But you can't expect them to maybe answer your email right away because they don't know who you are. They don't know if you're going to be around. They don't know what this company is. What is this GPAC? They don't know what that is.
Yep.
And so you just have to show them who you are. You send them messages, and that's why we send out emails to people, to our candidates. We send out emails to our companies. Let them know who we are. I tell a candidate right up front, I'm a recruiter, so they don't think that I'm the company calling them for an interview because they get really excited then.
Right.
I'm a recruiter. I'm working with a company who's looking for talent, and you have the qualifications that I think that they might be interested in. Do you have time for a conversation? Is this a good time? I always try to make sure, is this a good time? And if it's not, or if I have to leave a message, then if I have their email address, I always follow up, and then I always put the GPAC, the website, and a little bit about the company, so they know who they're dealing with too.
Yep. And they can do their own research.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny to me, like, you have a need, this person has a need. Like, we all need something, or we want something, or we want to grow, or we want to advance in a career or whatever. And then there's all these little things that happen to have that ultimate conversation. It's kind of like the human small talk thing. Like, we ultimately all want a connection, but sometimes to get to that connection, you have to kind of like do a few things to get there first, or send a few messages before you have a real in-person or on the phone conversation. It's just kind of an interesting observation about humans and communication. But it is the way that you talked about. It is the way that you make things happen. And you talked about, I like that you brought up the research piece, because that's kind of my next point. You talked about on both sides, a recruiter, doing a little research on who you are calling, but on the flip side, giving them, this is who I am. Like, check us out, check me out, so that it's not so cold.
Right.
But I kind of want to talk about that in the sense of your career change, right? Because you did make a career change late in life. You were appointed. That came to an end, and now what are you going to do? And so you did a lot of research. I kind of want to just get into that story a little bit about you making a change. Let's just kind of talk about that.
Yeah. My job ended. My appointment ended, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Well, actually, I kind of thought I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I knew what job I really wanted. And I thought, this is the job that I'm going to go after. It's not open yet, but I think that that's what I want to do. So I decided to take a little time off. It was winter. Might as well take a little time off. And I kind of just went through the process of what I really want. And I started to make my list of pros and cons, and I had opportunities out there. I'm very fortunate because I know a lot of people in South Dakota, and I did have some amazing opportunities. And I just decided that I needed to make this list of what it was that I really wanted in a job. And I really decided that I wasn't going to go to an office anymore. I wanted to work from anywhere. I looked at the age of my husband, who's older than me, who would be retiring before me. And my kids are 21, and they're going to be graduating from college and going somewhere. I don't know if they'll be in South Dakota. I hope they are, but they might not be in South Dakota. Are they going to go to grad school? Where are they going to go to grad school? And I want to be able to go where they're at. They're going to eventually get married, I would assume, and have a family, and I want to be there. And with all the jobs I was looking at, I would have needed to be in an office. Granted, you would get vacation, but I wouldn't have been able to be as mobile mobile as I am now. And so that was where I really came down to thinking, wow. So that's when GPAC just really floated to the top. And my husband's like, really? I mean, he was pretty surprised because that wasn't the direction I was going to go. And I just said, yep, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to, if my daughter gets a job somewhere or my son does, I want to be able to go there, stay there for a week or two till they kick me out or whatever, and work while they're doing whatever. I need to stay working, for several more years. I need to stay working, but I wanted to be able to just basically take my job wherever I was. And with the jobs I was looking at, you couldn't do that. They were all customer facing, not economic development, but a lot of interaction. And so traveling, some traveling in the state again. And I love that. But I just decided in this last leg of my career, I was going to do something different. So, a definite change.
Big change.
Big change.
I realize that not everybody's going to have the opportunities that you had, but you did the work of really figuring out what you want, what the different opportunities truly had to offer you. Like there was some substantial research in there. I've heard that you watched the videos a bunch of times. Like you really ingested and learned as much as you could about the companies that you were considering and the roles, and then your own list of pros and cons. I can't not hear that and feel like there'd be a lot of people at any stage in life that would be a helpful thing to apply.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. If you have the opportunity and you're, definitely research what you're gonna do, because life is too short to be unhappy. I mean, you see people that are unhappy in their job for some reason, or they're unhappy in their relationship. Life is too short. So make a change, whatever it is, whether it's getting out of that relationship, whether it's getting a new job. If you're unhappy because your commute is too long, or you're, you don't like the culture, maybe you're overworked, maybe you're working. A lot of people I talk to now are working over 60 hours a week, and they have a commute. That's a lot on a person. So if you don't like that, then maybe you need to look at making a change. But don't just make a rational change. If you could research the company, research what you really want to do. When I am trying to bring a candidate and a company together, I always tell the candidate, before your first interview, you need to research this company. And I always provide the website, and I provide a little information about the company. And I say, look into this yourself. This is what I'm telling you about the company. This is what I know. But I think you need to look into it. You need to ask your friends. You need to ask your neighbors. And you need to look into it yourself, because a lot of people are looking for long-term, stable employment. I hear that all the time. They may be at a startup and it's not going well. They need to do some research before they make their next move.
Right.
So if you can, not everybody has that opportunity to do that. But I was fortunate, very fortunate to be able to do that. Yep.
Do you feel like people mostly make emotional decisions to do that? I mean, we know just research and in the candidates that we work with, money is it's not a small part, but it's a part of what motivates somebody to make a change. You listed some of them. It could be a commute, it could be unhappiness, could be overworked, or underpaid, or whatever. There's a lot of motivators that may be for them, but
some people maybe are making an emotional choice and they're letting their emotions get the best of it. If they're currently employed, I encourage them. They told us this in training. This isn't anything that I thought up. They told us in training, and so I listened to them. You want to play devil's advocate. You want to make sure that they're really ready to move. Go back to your employer. Have you went back to them and told them you're unhappy? Have you went back to them and said you're going to leave? They're making you, you've been remote, now they're making you go back to the office. Have you told them how you felt? Because the worst thing, not the worst thing, but you don't want to go down the road with them and not ask them those questions, and then they're on a second interview and they get an offer, and then they go tell their boss, and then the counteroffer comes in. Because the counteroffer often comes in. You want to try to get the counteroffer on the front side. You want to have them talk to their employer, tell them that they're going to leave or that they're looking, and then when they've said no, then that they're going to leave. Because it's hard, and you don't want to waste a company's time. You don't want to waste a candidate's time on going down that path. So,
Yeah.
You always got to try to do that.
What would you say to someone considering a career change? It doesn't have to be later in life, but maybe somebody who's been in a world, like an industry for 30, 40 years. And they're like, I love that I know that there's other reasons why you made a change and why you still need a job, but you shifted hard. Like you took a totally different path. And I don't know, like what's the advice for somebody out there who is either considering that or needing to do that, or who doesn't know the benefit of taking on a challenge at your age?
Yeah. You talk about challenges, you can take on that challenge. You need to be strong. I mean, if you're going to do it, you can't, it's not for the weak, especially to take a big turn like I did.
Sure.
But if you want to make a career change, and no matter what industry you're in, research it. And if it looks like something you think you'd want to do, I'd say jump off and try it. Again, life is too short. Yeah. You don't want to stay in something that's not making you happy and it's not fulfilling. You want to be fulfilled. You made a career change.
Yep.
You took a
totally I was in ministry for 10 years. And
right.
Now I'm in videography. And
right. Yeah. You can do it. I would say, if you think it's all a mindset. You think you can, you can. You just need to have a positive attitude. And it's not going to be easy. If you've been in one industry for a long time and you move to another industry, it's hard. Yeah. And, recruiting is hard. I'm not going to say that it's easy. Yep. It's hard. But I like it. I like that it's a challenge. I like being challenged. So, again, it's not for everyone. But gosh, if people are thinking about doing it, I'd say look into it and come on, join GPAC.
That's awesome. Well, let's wrap up with kind of every episode we do a little kind of rapid fire question, just something fun at the end here, and kind of wrap up the episode. So I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions, and feel free to just kind of give a short, concise response, and then I'll go to the next one. You ready?
Okay.
Drum roll. All right. Who has been a big mentor or influence in your life?
Oh, gosh, I've had mentors in every job I've ever had, but I'd say one of my biggest mentors is probably my mom. She's 93 years old. She lives on the farm. She has taught me the value of working hard. She's taught me patience. She's taught me the value of money, and she's taught me to stay true to your values.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go, Mom.
Yeah.
If you could do one extreme sport without fear of death or injury, what would it be?
I don't even know. I would love to jump out of an airplane. I think that would be so fun. Yep. I'm just a little scared that I might break something.
You still can. That's still in the cards. That's awesome. What is maybe a best time in your life?
Gosh, I am the mother of twins, and I am so excited that I'm a mother of twins. So I'd say when I found out I was going to have twins and when I had them. Yeah. Best time.
That's awesome.
And raising them.
Did they wear the same outfits or?
Well, they're boy girl.
Oh, boy girl. Okay.
But they coordinated.
Yeah.
Always coordinated. Yes.
That's awesome.
They matched. Coordinated.
Well, and that's what my next question actually was. What are you most proud of?
Oh yeah, my kids. Yeah, and I have a stepdaughter too. I'm very proud of her also.
That's awesome. All right, last question. What's one tip you want to leave with people on how to talk to anyone?
You just have to get out of your comfort zone, and you just need to go for it. No matter what, what's the worst thing that can happen? Maybe you get a little embarrassed. Maybe you stumble over your words. What's the worst thing that can happen? You just have to go for it. In talking to others, because you never know what common ground you're going to find, and you might find that you have much more in common than you ever thought.
Yep.
So.
Awesome. Yeah. I love your positive attitude. I love your desire to be challenged and to go for it. And thank you again for the conversation.
Gosh, thanks for having me.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Cool. Well, again, thank you, Julie, for joining us. And thank you, everybody else, for listening in or watching. Again, we're going to do these podcasts every other week and keep diving into different topics just like this one that or maybe are at the level of recruiting or hiring or company growth or how to manage a remote workforce, stuff like that. We're excited to keep diving into these topics. So make sure you check out our website, gogpac.com/knowledge center. A lot of great articles and tips there, and as well as subscribe to the channel. Wherever you listen to your podcast, go subscribe so you know when the next one comes out. Help you win at the corporate game. We'll see you next week.